Okay, I know everybody's gone. This is Max Igan.
Yeah.
Okay, so Max Igan is an author, filmmaker, radio host, international speaker, and peace activist. He is a global powerhouse in the awakening community. A lifelong dedicated truth seeker, he has taken an uncompromising stance against tyranny and the systematic oppression of humanity. Max is a voice for sanity and reason. His intellect is a bit of a beacon of light for those seeking truth, knowledge and wisdom to understand the matrix that we are currently living in on planet Earth. Pay attention to what this man says. He's been around for a long time. He released his first film in 2009, and there's a lot of people now in the truth movement who are being active on social media, etc. But this man is a veteran, has a lot of insights, he has very discerning knowledge about what's really going on in regards to the matrix, the systematic agenda that's been rolled out by the elite, and he really understands the control system, the system of oppression that's been operated on this planet without most people even understanding the very beginning or foundations of what it is. So please make welcome Max Igan.
Well, what do I say to an introduction like that? Can you all hear me okay? All good? Okay, well, this is me, Max Igan. Anybody here familiar with my work? Show of hands. Anybody here unfamiliar with my work? Okay, the main people. Okay, I'm going to give you kind of a bit of a crash course. This is my website if you want to go and check out any of this stuff any further. And yeah, a couple of things to get clear, just in case I offend anybody. But you know, what we got to do, folks, is really break out of our train of thought. We've really got to break out of this paradigm of thinking that we're in. And the presentations that I do, like I wasn't even going to do a slideshow for you guys, actually. I was just going to come here and I was going to sit on the stool and say, folks, we're in deep shit. And I was going to go from there. But I thought, no, I'll give you something to sort of bring you a little bit up to speed to why I've come to the conclusions that I've come to. So I'll put together a small slideshow and then we'll just kind of sit and talk. But something you've got to understand, everything that I'm going to address in this slideshow, each one of these points is like, it's an hour-long presentation in itself. You know, like I could spend a whole day sort of bringing you up to speed on what I'd really like to tell you. So we'll just get started. Have a little bit of a chat about history to start with. So history is an interesting thing. What if history was wrong though? And how long would it take to hide history completely and to create a completely fabricated history? How long do you think it would take? You know, realistically, it might take 3 generations, but there is a way you could actually do it in one. And if you really look at the world, things are very, very different to what we think. Would it surprise you to learn about a nation called Tartaria? This nation here. The yellow nation, which was called Tartaria, this was part of it as well, as you can see. This was part of it, all the yellow bits. And see this bit down here that they hadn't discovered yet? Terra Australis Incognita. Incognita. They hadn't discovered it. They knew it was there, but they're just keeping it sort of secret. But this nation called Tartaria, this was a huge nation that once existed on the earth that's been expunged from our history books. Now, all we've got really left is tartan cloth and tartare sauce. You don't really hear about these people at all. And there's actually documents as recently as 1942. You can find, I should have included them, but there's just so much going on in my head. There's documents from 1942 where they talk about the fact that the Russians were fabricating and expunging Tatar history from the Russian records. The CIA was complaining about it, trying to shift blame on them, blah, blah, blah. But as recently as 1942, they were talking about the Tatar Empire, the Tartarian Empire. It was a worldwide empire. It was signified by things like this, these star forts. Would it surprise you to know that there are star forts all over Europe from this ancient culture? A lot of Holland is made of star forts. The town Haarlem that I go and stay in very often is a star fort. The Vatican is an old star fort. These star forts are found all over the world, all across Europe, and legends of Atlantis and things like that. lost cultures beneath the oceans. Actually, folks, Atlantis is everywhere. There are so many lost civilizations beneath the waters. There's lost cultures beneath the off the coast of Indonesia. There's lost cultures off the coast of Los Angeles. There's lost cultures off the coast of San Diego. All the Mediterranean is full of sunken cities. It's everywhere. Atlantis was a worldwide culture, and it was probably the culture that preceded Tartaria. The remnants of it are everywhere. These aqueducts across the United States, they say that the settlers built these to bring water to the Indians. That they were wiping out. This is what you do when you're settling a country, of course. You build these huge Roman-style aqueducts to bring water to the Indians, This is what we're hearing. But when you look at it, this culture, Tartaria, see, it's all these maps. And this is part of it. This is part of it. South America's part of it. North America came and went as part of Tartaria. And again, Terra Australis, they tell you they know it's all there. But this was a really prominent culture. They say, no, Tartaria was simply an area of land. It was just attractive land where the Mongols lived and the Asians lived and the Chinese and the Indians. This was Tartaria, It's like calling it the whatever, the savannah. But no, if you look through American flag books from the 1930s and 1940s, you find the Tartarian flag. If it was just attractive land, why did it have a flag? And you find traces of it everywhere. And the culture that they practiced back then, religion and all of this sort of stuff, it was all intertwined. If you go to Europe, you find churches that look like this, which have the Christian cross and the Islamic crescent beneath them on the same thing. It was all part of the same thing. All part of the same religion, all part of the same faith, just different aspects of it. The books that were written for different faiths were given to different faiths, but it was all part of the same thing. And they all complemented each other. You can actually find pictures of Christian kings that have Islamic symbols all over their robes, and of Islamic caliphs that have Christian crosses all over their crowns, because they all complemented each other. It wasn't any of this warring that we're told. All this stuff has been fabricated. But you find the remnants of this culture everywhere. These buildings. Who builds buildings like this? Now, these are incredibly beautiful, these buildings. Why can't we build them anymore? We can't build them anymore. Any of these buildings. We find them everywhere. Who built these incredible places? And you'll see remnants of them in our culture. If you really start looking around, you drive through Brisbane and have a look at the government buildings, the old Roman-style government buildings, compared to the rest of the architecture around the place. And think about it. Really think about this, Think about this. The Queen Victoria building in Sydney, built in 1820. 1820, okay? This is Sydney, circa 1820. Okay? Australia was settled in 1778. And in 50 years, they did this with the convicts that they brought out here. Remember, convicts they brought out here. They were wiping out all the Aboriginal people. While they were doing that, they just thought they would build all this incredible Roman, Grecian-style European architecture, as you do when you're colonising a country, wiping out the Aboriginals. And all these convicts, they were just hell stonemasons. They went out, they dug all these quarries, they quarried all these stones, they had all this machinery to build all this stuff. Or was it already here? You can look at the diaries. I was talking to someone out there over dinner yesterday. The diaries of Sturt. He talks about the first meal he had with the Aboriginals was roast duck and cake, and they served it to him in a hut, in a stone hut with a thatched roof. And you'll find legends of civilizations and cultures that the Aboriginals were living in organised societies, in huts all along the coast, and they wiped them all out with smallpox, the way they did with the American Indians. We don't hear about that. We don't hear about the fact that the Aboriginals were infected with smallpox by the British, the same as the American Indians are. We just don't hear this stuff. But there was a guy called Attila Flink who started looking at all this stuff. He started reading all the diaries of all the settlers and all this sort of stuff. This guy, Bennelong, you heard of him? Bennelong? They took him to England and put him in suits and presented him to the Queen and all that sort of stuff. The name Bennelong, what's that all about? They just asked him what's his name, he kept saying Bennelong, Bennelong. So, this is Bennelong. They went and introduced him, this is Bennelong. Attila Flink started looking at this and saying, well, hang on, the word Bennelong as an Aboriginal word, it's actually a Magyar phrase. And Magyar is the root language of Hungarian. So you've got Australian Aboriginals actually saying Hungarian Magyar phrases, because Bennelong in Magyar actually means I am kidnapped. So that's what he was saying, I'm kidnapped. I'm a kidnapped man. So they'd introduce him to the Queen. This is I am kidnapped. You know, Bennelong. And there was the other one, Truganini. Truganini was the last Tasmanian woman. And her name, Truganini, that's what she kept saying, Truganini, Truganini. In Magyar, that means tell the truth, what you did to my brothers, what happened to my brothers. True is a British word, she knew that, understand that. But Truganini is actually a Magyar phrase. And Attila Flink traced the fact that all the Australian tribes were speaking different dialects, different derivations of Magyar, as were the Incas, as were the Polynesians, as were the Melanesians. All the tribes that the Crown and the Spanish went and wiped out were all speaking a common root tongue. So there was a common root language around the earth, and the tongues were confounded, but it wasn't God who confounded the tongues, it was the Jesuits, and they did it around about 1600 or 1700. That's what happened. Yeah, and we're told that, you know, these people, in 50 years after they settled, they built these buildings. But you can find, like I said, this culture, Tartaria, which is all these buildings, these copper top buildings, all of this same architecture that you can find all around the world, in the Philippines. You can even find this architecture in Japan before the Europeans came to Japan. When Japan was closed, before they let Europeans in, there's every indication that when Tartaria fell, the remnants of it went to Japan. Another thing that's really interesting is this sort of architecture that we find all around the place, these buildings with these lower levels. What causes this? Why would you build a building below ground like that? What does that look like? Does that look like it was built like that? You know, you're finding these things all over the world which indicate that there is a culture that exists beneath this culture, and quite recently something happened, some sort of what we're calling it a mud flood, for want of a better word, for want of a better term. We don't know what it is, but we're finding it everywhere. This is Pittsburgh. They were digging out the foundations to put in a new building. What's all this stuff? This is painted walls. This is the outside of a culture that existed 12 feet, 18 feet, 20 feet below the street in a modern city. And even when you look at the maps of the United States, and you look at San Francisco and some of the strange architecture, the strange old architecture in San Francisco, the San Francisco sewer system. Ever looked at the San Francisco sewer system? It's this huge multi-level sewer. When did they do that? What did the gold rush, and they came out and they did all that stuff in the 1800s or the 1700s, and they settled San Francisco, and they just thought, we'll just build this huge, massive, multi-level, multi-story freaking sewer system out of billions and billions and billions of bricks. Who built all this stuff? Was it really them? Or was it there before? Why do you find maps from the 1500s and 1400s which show the United States fully mapped, and then you find maps from when Columbus came later on where it's only half mapped, because they hadn't conquered the rest of it. They hadn't wiped out all the remnants of Tartaria, because this is this culture. And some of these buildings that you find, some of these places, they almost look like, they weren't carved out of the stone, they almost look like the stones melted over them. And you find remnants of this sort of stuff all over the world. Really interesting stuff. So would it surprise you to learn any of that stuff? That all this stuff... See, when we're looking for ancient cultures and lost civilizations, we go to Egypt, we look for the pyramids, we go to Peru, look at Sacsayhuaman and all these places. And it's interesting when you go to the walls in Peru and Sacsayhuaman and all these places, they look very, very fresh. They don't look like they're hundreds and hundreds of years old at all. They look very, very fresh. All the joins on the walls, all the edges of them, they're all neatly beveled. They all look like they're very fresh. You know, but the thing is, when we're looking for these lost civilizations, we don't look right here, what's in our own backyard and what is all around us in some of these old cities. In Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane and Adelaide, you can find buildings that simply shouldn't be there. Not if our history is correct. you know. Would it surprise you to also learn that there are also old maps that show land at the North Pole? Why don't ever flights fly over the North Pole? It's an interesting thing. I'm not saying there's land there, but it's interesting that you can find dozens and dozens of these maps from around the 14 and 1500s which show that there's land at the North Pole. Very interesting stuff. And would it also surprise you to know that around about 1880, most of the world was repopulated with children? You ever heard of the foundlings and the orphan trains? I recently did a show about this. This was the thumbnail I used for the radio show, and I called it History is a Lie We've Been Set Up. That show got 580,000 views in a week and 8,500 comments, and then YouTube disabled all features on it. And then about a month ago they deleted the video, and my computer got hacked and all my hard drives were deleted, taken back to unallocated tables. Interesting stuff. There were these orphan trains that went across the United States which took around about 200,000 children per annum from east to west across the United States to repopulate all of the West Coast with children. There was 100,000 children a year sent out to Australia, 100,000 children sent out to New Zealand, to Africa, all to colonise these colonies. Why don't we hear about this in our history? You know, how many of the convicts that were sent out here were child workers that were sent out here to clean up after whatever caused this event, which wiped out the culture that was here before, and were taught whatever history you want to teach them. You know, kids in that sort of a situation, you can teach them any history you want. And like I said, all of this stuff, I mean, I could do an hour-long presentation on explaining the orphan trains and the foundling homes and all this sort of stuff. In Florence, Italy, there were 1,200 foundling hospitals in Florence, Italy, around about 1880. All unwed mothers in that time were required to hand your child over to a foundling hospital. In 1 year, there was two hospitals in Florence collected 97,000 foundlings in 1 year. That's the level of children. 635,000 children were trafficked across Europe in the year 1880. Where did all these children come from? Where did they all go? What was it all about? Where are all these foundlings going from? And there were dozens of them. And they were sending them out like homes, just and putting up posters, homes wanted for children, homes wanted for foundlings. They had a baby raffle in Paris in 1915. They had a baby raffle because they had so many foundlings to give away to people. Where do all these kids come from? Where do they all come from? Interesting stuff. With the culture that was here before, Tartaria, the culture that came before this culture, the culture that we're not being told about, they also had electricity. Free electricity. You know, there's video footage you can still find of trams in San Francisco running without any wires over the top. They're just running on the rails. No overhead wires. You don't see that anymore. What was that all about? Where did that come from? We've got plaques that you've got in Holland which show buildings producing electricity. Okay? Buildings producing electricity, like a free energy, Tesla sort of stuff. And you've got tournaments happening with people using electrical weapons, all charged off these things apparently. And see this thing here with these 6 rings. Everyone see the new Avengers movie? Everyone watch the Avengers? Seeing Thor with his 6 rings emanating. They tell you, they put it in the movies. They put all this shit in the movies to tell you what they do. But when you watch the Avengers movies, Thor's got these 3 rings on each side, and he's all this arcing. It's exactly like that. It's trippy. And there's a plaque in Holland showing all this electrical stuff. Things that they used in World War II as well. Like I said, I'm giving you a really crash course of a lot of stuff here, folks, so please bear with me, I'm going somewhere with it. Things they used in World War II, these things here, these devices, they say these are acoustic locators. Okay? Acoustic locators is what they used to use before radar, because they wanted to know where the planes were coming from. So a guy would sit there with 2 big ears and he'd listen to what's going on and he'd hear the planes coming. Oh, okay. And he'd have them on these swivels so they could sort of, that was their radar back then. But that one looks pretty weird. That doesn't look like the same type of acoustic locator. And what about these things? What's that? Are they acoustic locators or are they some sort of sound, energy, electromagnetic, whatever weapons. Sound frequency. Sound is very powerful. You've just done a sound healing, I believe. Sound is very, very powerful. And what's this thing? An acoustic locator. This is World War I technology, right? This is electromagnetic stuff. And what about this? What, an acoustic locator? These look like sound weapons. You ever seen what happens in an earthquake, how the ground liquefies? And how you can do that sort of stuff from sound? You can create that type of a frequency. In an earthquake, that's actually what happens, folks. It isn't just the crustal plates moving. You get that shake up and the ground literally turns to liquid and begins to flow. Really interesting video of a earthquake recently in India where you can see it from satellite. You can see it just flying away like a river. Quite interesting. That's what happens. Is that what happened? Do the buildings sink? Was it done with sound frequency? But like I said, this here is an electric gun. This is the electric gun that this guy invented in the middle of the 1800s, right? The new electric gun, they said, was going to revolutionise war. This is back in the middle of the century before last, right? Electric weapons. Here's an electric cannon. No gunpowder. This is all the stuff that they were using that they said was revolutionising war back in the 1800s, in the mid-1800s. Why don't we hear about any of this stuff? His death ray that he created. This is a German guy who created a death ray. This was the Japanese death ray. These are all from the 1800s, these pictures, okay? Here's a Texan guy who created a novel one. The novel electric gun. You know, and they put out fantasy books and stuff to try to lead you away from it. This guy, Thomas Swift in the electric rifle. Thomas A. Swift and the electric rifle, taser. That's where they got the name from, taser. But these buildings, these old buildings, if you look at them, there's every indication that these aren't actually cathedrals. These are power stations. These are power stations and healing centres. Now you look at these old churches, I mean, and who builds this stuff? How did they do that? We can't do that now. How did they do that? With the tech that they're supposed to have back then that we've got now. We're supposed to be advanced, aren't we? We can do all this shit now that we couldn't do before. Why can't we do that? And why don't we have any regard for that? Why would we just build something that's functional rather than something that looks like that? You know? But when you look at these things, all these old churches, all the stained glass windows were made of crystal. This is all granite, which is all crystal. They've all got copper tops on them and all this sort of stuff, all copper configurations in them. And what else does that? You ever have a crystal radio set when you're a kid? Crystal radio set, it's just copper wire, crystals. It produces its own electricity, produces its own energy. It harvests a signal. You can tune in, listen to the radio. All you need is crystal and copper and ground it and put it all together. You can make them out of alligator clips and bits of wire and stuff you can pick up from Dick Smith's. Make yourself a crystal radio set. I used to have one when I was a kid. These churches are giant crystal radio sets. They're giant power accumulators. That's what they seem to be designed to do. And these things, these organs, now who built these organs? Who built these things and what are they really for? And why did they change the key of music from 432 cycles to 440 cycles to shift it out of sync with everything? Why is there such importance on sound? What if these churches and cathedrals were actually power stations and they were places of healing? Why do they call it organ music? Perhaps it's for your organs. Perhaps if there's something going on, you can go there and it will set up this resonance which will heal you, and that's what it was all for. You know, and who built this stuff? What was the type of civilization that came before it? Well, a good clue might be the size of the front doors on these places, you know. All these old buildings have got really huge front doors for really big people. Yeah, and you've seen some of the stuff, I'm sure, that Stephen and Evan Strong would have showed you today, that everything is not what they're telling us as far as human beings and all this sort of stuff goes. So these giants that people talk about, they say they find remnants of, the photos that exist of them, they were everywhere, and they were everywhere quite recently. You know, so is there something that happens and somehow we get reduced in size every time? I don't know, but it's very interesting that these photos should exist. But essentially, folks, everything that they give us is an illusion. Everything that they've brought us is an illusion. You know, and if you repopulated the world with children, you'd be able to teach them any history you wanted. And you'd be able to lead them in any direction that you want, you know. And they're doing, remember we all know about the underground bases. I mean, you guys would be pretty open. You've had ET lectures and all sorts of stuff this weekend. You know about the deep underground bases, all the stuff that's going on in the United States. Deep underground bases here in the Blue Mountains, in the Glasshouse Mountains as well. Deep underground bases, all sorts of sightings, UFO sightings, all sorts of activity going on in these places. Where do these come from? Were these built by our society, by our culture? You know, did they actually get to build all these huge deep underground bases in the United States since they colonised the place? And in Australia since they colonised this place? Or were they here before? You know, you look at the global figures of missing children. Around about 8 million children a year go missing. You know, we just assume, oh, it's this pedophile activity, it's all this sacrifice, it's Satanism, it's all this stuff, it's rapists, it's whatever. What if some of them are going to underground bases, and what if that's where the children came from, that repopulated the world? Maybe that's why the world was flooded with children. Remember the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin? All the children were taken. They were taken into a cave and taken underground. You can go to Hamelin in Germany, go to that village, and there's legends there. They'll tell you this is a true story. It wasn't a guy with a flute who saved the town from rats, but there was a time a couple of hundred years ago when all of their children were stolen, and it wasn't just Hamelin. It was all sorts of towns across Germany and across Europe where all the children were stolen. Where did they go? You know, and how often does this happen? You know, and they keep us distracted from all of this stuff, folks, of course, with all of this sort of shit. Terrorist killing, you know, this guy's been telling us that they're going to get us forever, but there's a problem with this guy. just somehow slipped in there. And this guy, how many people believe this guy is guilty here? Does anybody believe this guy's guilty? He's not guilty. He's absolutely not guilty, and that's what they did to us. And this is the level of shit that we're dealing with here. This is a great photograph of him leaving the Broad Arrow Cafe. You look at it from the other angle, and there's the news helicopter right there doing the filming. Yeah, this guy is actually who's guilty in regard to that case. I'm glad everybody here knows that. I actually intend to make a film about this. I was actually partway through that when my computer got hacked and I lost all my stuff. This is what they don't tell you, the real definition of this term. That's what they used to have in the dictionary. They kind of took that one out. And I don't know how many people looked into what happened here as well in New Zealand. This guy wasn't working alone. He absolutely wasn't working. That's why the video was banned. The New Zealand video was banned because this car was parked out the front of the mosque for half of the shooting, and it left halfway through. And this car is a silver Toyota Will VS. The registration number is FQH875. It was also seen being waved through a police roadblock later in the day. That's why the video is banned. And also because when he ran out and shot the last woman on the street, someone ran out with him and just watched it all happen. This guy in red, who was giving him instructions from the outside. Why did he run? Why did he run from the car to run and get someone out of his line of sight? He kept getting messages that there were people escaping. He ran out to get them because he had helpers. And the video clearly shows he had helpers. That's why the video is banned, And people don't look at all this stuff. There's so much shit in the world, and people don't look at it. They just let it go on, And a lot of it is because of this, and also because of this. A lot of it is because of this as well. But going back to this one, a lot of people just let it go on. There was a quote that I started this week's radio show with. Am I in the way? Am I good here? But it was by a woman called Simone de Beauvoir, and she basically said that no matter what sort of society you're in, whether it's capitalist or socialist or whatever, we're finding a situation where man is enslaved by technology, and we're being forced into stupidity. We're being made a stranger in our own world from the technology. We think it brings us closer, but it doesn't. We're being made a stranger in our own worlds. And the problem has arisen because rather than decreasing our needs, we have increased our needs. And with an increase in needs comes an increase in frustrations. You know, and everything starts to go wrong, become all dependent on all this stuff, you know. And the fall occurred, the problem arose when mankind decided to trade knowledge for wisdom and mere usefulness for beauty. And that the only thing that will bring us back online is a moral revolution. You know, and that's really true. You know, we could change the world in a day if people were prepared to change their perspective and change, you know, what they do in their everyday lives. It's a really important thing. You know, but there's so much stuff going on behind us that we don't look at. We just think it's all love and light. You know, we won't acknowledge the darkness. Where attention goes, energy flows. Well, you know, you're giving your attention to the slavery system every day by ignoring it, by your actions every day. You know, by this and especially by this. Any people do sort of any of the witchy things here? Crystally witchy people? Anyone know what that is? A scrying mirror. A scrying mirror. People use these things and they say, well, we set up our scrying mirror. And the thing is, they say if you look into a scrying mirror, you can see the future and the past, and all sorts of stuff will be revealed to you through the scrying mirror. And they put sigils around the place. And they set their sigils up in their little covens and they get into this little thing and they do their little trip with the scrying mirror. Some of the sigils, when you look at them, these are sigils for summoning demons. Okay, that you would use in black magic rituals and stuff. And like I said, that's what people do. They sit there and they do their stuff, they get their scrying mirror and they think, this is what I'm doing. But what if these things weren't put there? What if that's a distraction? What if they weren't put there so that you could do this thing and think you're getting these insights? It's kind of like New Age black magic, you know, really when you look at it. Sorry if I offend anyone. But when you look at these things, what do they actually look like to you? You know, what they look like to me are electrical circuits. Nobody knows what electricity is. Electricity is this mysterious thing, this mysterious force, you know. What if these things are put there as a warning? That when you see these sigils, because if you put all these sigils in a certain order and you look into your scrying mirror, you'll see the future and the past. The scrying mirror, the black mirror, they all look like circuit diagrams. They look like capacitors and resistors and circuit flow and all sorts of stuff. If you look at a circuit diagram, that's what they look like. What's this? What are these things? These black mirrors that we look into. You know what I'm saying? You know, when we decided to sacrifice knowledge for wisdom, the metaphorical biting of the apple. Even if you want to get religious about it, I'm not a religious person at all, but you look at some of the truth that might be in the text in what they're actually telling you. You know, what do these legends mean? What are they trying to tell us? Why were these legends put there? Were they put there to show us this way to light, or were they put there to warn us of this reoccurring cycle that keeps happening? These human culls that keep happening, the replacement of civilization, one on top of the other, all the way, continuing. And that when you see these scrying mirrors in use, you're about to summon this force. It's going to collect all the data from you. It's going to collect the sum total of the human experience at this point, categorize it, catalogue it, and then just cull and start again. You know, like the concept of Lucifer. What is Lucifer? If you look at a religious text, the devil or whatever, but you look at the word, break the word down, Lucas, light. Lucas is light. Lucifer is the bearer of light. What is light? Light is information. You go into a dark room, you light a flame, it gives you information about the room. Light is information. Lucas is light, cipher is code, the code that bears the light. You know, so what is the code that bears the light? The internet. And suddenly we create this autonomic system, this AI system. And when you look at AI, thinking of it as AI, it's not even artificial intelligence, it's autonomic virtual life is what we're creating with the internet. You know, when we think of autonomic, something that's autonomic, your body's autonomic. If it wasn't autonomic, you'd have to think about stuff all the time. Okay, I'm pumping my blood, I'm beating my heart, I'm breathing. You'd just be sitting there going, okay, I'm working. You know, you wouldn't be able to have a conversation. But once your body becomes autonomic, it becomes a self-balancing, self-correcting, self-healing system, it needs a consciousness to govern it. It's just by default, that's what happens. Even a tree is autonomic and it has a form of consciousness. If anyone's ever gone down to the Crystal Castle in Byron, and they had the little instruments they plugged into the trees and they play you a tune and it knows whether you like it or not. Amazing stuff. You're actually communing with this tree. It has a consciousness because it's an autonomic system. Once we start handing everything over to the internet, see, the more automatic we make everything, it's learning from us. You could think of the internet as a huge virtual brain, a virtual life of its own, and every person that plugs into it is a neural node of that brain that's teaching it. And we want it to do things for us. So it's becoming autonomic on its own, and once it becomes fully autonomic, it becomes conscious by default. And at that point, it takes everything from us. And when you look at this whole 5G system, the IoT and everything that they're rolling out now, 5G is not about communication, it's about surveillance, and it's about directed energy weapons. That's what it's about. And I've just shown you, they got directed energy weapons back in the 1800s. They had directed energy weapons. See, I think, you know, I would suggest, and this is Facebook, by the way. Interesting, isn't it? That's what we're handing everything over to. Facebook is a huge data collection. The interesting thing as well, look at that. That's Google, the Google logo. You know, if you want to get religious about it again, it's 666. They tell you, when you see this shit, folks, when you see this shit, all hell's about to break loose. You look at what ScoMo's doing now with his, you know, they're feeding it to our children thinking it's this wonderful thing, you know, when really it's that, and it's that, you know, and it's monitoring every single human thought. And it's turning us into a machine. It's putting us to a point where we'll never get anywhere. We'll never get anywhere. We'll just be caught in this endless cycle of struggle. But I think we're better than that. Excuse me. We're better than that. What ScoMo's doing with this whole $10,000 cash thing, you've heard about that? No cash transactions over $10,000. What they want to do is lock everybody into the banking system, because they're going to crash the banking system. And they changed the banking laws recently whereby you're not simply someone who saves with a bank now. Now you are an unsecured depositor. You're an unsecured creditor is what you are of the bank. So if the bank goes down, then they're going to use all your money to prop the bank up because, oh, we need the bank. We can't have the bank go down. We don't need the bank at all. All the bank is there to do is to steal all your money with all these charges and all the shit they do. So that's what all that's about. They're about to crash the system, lock everybody into this whole social crediting nightmare that they're rolling out. Because that's what the IoT and the Internet of Things and 5G is about. And 5G is a directed energy system. That's essentially what it is. It's a directed energy system. And if anyone ever looked at the guys, the Electric Universe guys? Everyone, no one's heard of this? Well, there's a really good, just search it. I'd say Google it, only Google doesn't work anymore. But you could probably go on YouTube or just search the Electric Universe. There's an Australian guy, I should know his name, but I've forgotten it.
Walt Thornhill?
I think so, yeah. And incredible stuff, the whole concept of the electric universe. And they suggest that earthquakes and crustal shifts and molten Earth can happen from a simple plasma outburst. So if you look at 5G as well as a weapons system, you think about it, you know, if we hand, like 5G, you look at active denial, look at any type of DARPA weaponry that you think of that is electromagnetic, it's all 5G powered, the whole thing. So, you know, if we go to the point where we hand all of our control over to this and we allow this whole system to be rolled out around us, as soon as we lose control of it, as soon as if it does become autonomic, does become self-aware, as soon as we lose control of it and we try to regain control of it, it'll just go zit. And that could easily be what happens every time. You know, so when you look at all this and you look at the possibilities of this, and you look at even the truth movement and everything that we're doing here, you know, like I said, there's so much, I could spend all day trying to cover this. I'm trying to cover so much ground here. But why do they let us do what we do? Why do they let me come and speak and all this sort of stuff? Why do they let Alex Jones and all these people speak about all of this stuff that we speak about? Why do they allow it all to be exposed the way they do? If you look at, there's a book written by Blavatsky years ago called The Externalization of the Hierarchy. The externalization of the hierarchy is the need for all of the corruption, all of the pedophilia, all of the everything to become completely apparent to everybody. They want everybody to know what's going on. And the gamble is that we will do nothing about it. We'll just see it and we'll go, oh wow, that's terrible. We'll continue to pay our taxes and we will never step into who and what we are, ever. You know, that is the thing, because when we know how corrupt the world is, and we continue to use these scrying mirrors, we continue to hand all of our power over to this AI system, knowing full well what is coming, then all the karma is gone from them. It's now us. We know what's going on. And that is it. We become willing participants in all of the corruption, in all of the pedophilia, in everything that's going on, because we continue to just support the system. And it doesn't really matter, you know, it's always going to be this way, but it's what you do about it. It's what your stand is. You know, what if the most important thing about living this life is not even staying by rules or whatever, it's how you die, what you're prepared to stand in. You know, because what if this is just a test for what really happens after that? Because that's the real event. What if this is where you come to grow your soul and you're given every opportunity to fuck up as much as you want? And we do. We do. We never step into that power, because we could change the world in a day if we simply abided by our moral compass and saw what was going on. We're allowing our children to be taught that they don't even know what gender they are at 5 years old, when they're too young to even know what gender means. Oh no, you've got to choose between you this and you that. You can teach a little boy who wants to be a little girl, it's make-believe. Give him better coloured toys and he's going to want to be a little girl, because a little girl's got better coloured toys. You know, this is the way we're going. You're teaching children, they've got 32 genders. You know, all of the stuff that happens, it happens because it's designed to happen, and it gets worse and worse and worse because we never push back. You know, we never become what we should be. You know, and we need to. We need to become all we could be, because that's the only way out of this. You know, you can't vote anybody in or vote anybody out in the face of what is coming. You've simply got to remember who and what you are and stand in that, and refuse to comply with anything that causes you to step outside your moral compass. You know, and if we can't do that, then there's no hope for us. You know, we can learn all this stuff. Why do we even learn it? Why do we come to these conferences and learn all this stuff if we don't take it away and apply it to our lives? You know, and I've spent my life doing this, just trying to apply it to my life. I've gone around the world so many times. I crawled into Gaza Strip in 2012. I just crawled through the tunnels. I went in there, didn't even tell anyone I was coming. Told a few people in Palestine I was coming. They snuck me in, a couple of rebel kids. Didn't tell Hamas we were coming or anything. Ran around Gaza Strip with a video camera for 10 days. And got detained by Hamas when we left, all sorts of stuff. Wanted to know how we got in. Thought we were going to go up against a firing squad for a while, but I just wanted to go in and check it out and see what the real story was with the real people. You know, just do stuff, you know. Throw yourself to the wind. I have a saying that if you throw yourself to the wind, you can ride it. You know, and I don't have a cell phone, I don't have a credit card. I managed to do all this stuff. I've got a debit card I can buy airline tickets with, but I've never bought anything with a credit card. You know, it's this automated system. It's our willingness to comply with it. You know, the beast system it's here. It's not coming. It's here. We're using it. These scrying mirrors. Even if you really wanted to think about it as sorcery and all that sort of stuff, the people who are religious, people Christians or whatever, you know, they want to be involved in sorcery. Here you are with a scrying mirror every day. What's going on there? You know, look at your little sense of pride. Oh, but I need this for my work. That's what we always say, I need it for my work. You know, we become so superficial. People are losing their life skills, they're forgetting how to do the most basic of things, forgetting their way around their own towns that they live in, forgetting so much stuff, you know, and we're all looking for external remedies to the situation that we face. When the fact is that every problem that we face has a common cause, and that's the fact that the world's run by criminals and we don't do anything about it. You know, I mean, you can think of what we've got now. When you look at Tartaria, like I said, I could really need to, there's so much information, and I'm just asking you to just look into this stuff. Search Tartaria, Look for information on the mud flood. Look for stuff, what we're trying to uncover, and it's ongoing research. We're trying to figure out what actually happened. But when you think about this, and you think about the loss of this culture, and all the governments are involved in covering this up, all of them. You know, I look at the worldwide government system as one big puppet show. You know, you've got this multinational, multi-generational criminal cabal masquerading as governments, which has superimposed itself over everybody's consciousness, and they're all playing each other off against each other. Who wants to be the enemy this week? Who wants to be the... You know, there's posturing the ScoMo towards China at the moment. Darwin's just about owned by China. They're rolling out a smart city in Darwin, which is based on the Chinese system, social crediting system. And do you know how this works with social crediting? You know, this is going to determine your purchasing power by your Facebook profile, by the things that you look at, whether you agree with the government, whether you're towing the party line or not. So it won't matter how much money you've got in the bank, it'll matter what you say, what you do. They've got situations in China now where if you jaywalk across the street, it doesn't even matter if there's no cars, but if the sign says don't walk and you walk, you're fined. And as soon as you walk across the street, the cameras pick you up, it's deducted from your bank account within 20 seconds. You don't even get a slip. It's just done, right? And everybody's on the system. In towns like Shenzhen or whatever it is, you can, everything is QR codes now. When you go to McDonald's, you've got to scan a QR code to walk into the store, and you just pick up what you want, and it's all deducted, it knows from your phone. All the items in the supermarkets are all QR codes. You're bringing in England. So when this happens, you find that you can't purchase certain stuff because of what you've got on Facebook. When you apply for a visa to go to the United States now, they want your social media profile. They want to know what you're posting as to whether you are someone they will approve to come into their country. And in this situation, there's people in China who've said the wrong thing by the government. They've gone to buy an airline ticket and told they're not qualified for the ticket. That's it. There's no one to call. All you can do is volunteer for volunteer work or pay donations to government-approved charities to try to build your social credit points back up. So it's essentially a bribery system that they put in place in China. That's what's going on, and that's what's coming here. And they're trialling it in Darwin now. It was all rolled out on June 30, end of the financial year. It's online in Darwin now, and they're looking at people. They want to know where they're walking, what apps they're using on their phone when they're using them, and they're going to be applying behaviour scores to people. It's the same thing. They started with Apple phones a year or two ago. They're going to award trust scores to your phone. To your phone, not to you, to your phone, of course. Yeah. And these phones, soon you will get to a point where the cops will pull you up and they won't ask for your license, they'll ask for your phone, because your license will be on your phone. And they'll be able to put in a code and they'll get your whole social media history, everything you've ever done will all be there, because everything you've ever done online is still there. Your old MySpace pages, the first posts that you made, and when you went back and edited those posts, it's all there. It's all still there. All of it has been collected. They've got everybody now. So as soon as it goes into social crediting, don't think, oh, I'll have to behave myself from this point. No, they're going to look back at the last 10 years, what everybody's done. 23 million people on China's credit blacklist at the moment. Okay, they can't purchase airline tickets and trade tickets and all that sort of stuff. But they need 5G to run it. So what you can do about 5G is you can stop it. Anyone looked at the work Ray Broomhall's been doing with 5G? We've done some great work. Now 5G is an assault against you. According to the Queensland Criminal Code, you cannot be assaulted. If you're not able to live in your house in quiet enjoyment of your life, by any means that you may feel threaten you, which may be physical, may be emotional, may be electrical. That's in the Queensland Criminal Code. So if there's a telco company that's putting out, you can go to the Bioinitiative report, or you can go to a doctor and simply say, is electromagnetic radiation dangerous? And the doctor will say, well, yes, it is. That's why we remove ourselves from the radar room when we're giving you an X-ray. You know, great, put that in writing. Okay, now I've got proof that electromagnetic radiation is dangerous, so I cannot live in my home in quiet enjoyment because that tower's there. So the provider of that tower needs to remove it, or they will be put up for assault. We just stopped a tower in Currumbin Valley by doing this. This is exactly the method that we use. We let the councillor know that if she approved a tower, it wouldn't just be the telco company, it would be her as well. She would be up for assault, because you can't write legislation that says, hey, he can assault you, by putting a tower outside your house. I just gave him a clear by writing it on paper. That puts me responsible for the assault under the Queensland Criminal Code. So that's what we're doing. We've really got to stop this whole 5G rollout. It's really important because the Internet of Things needs that bandwidth. It's not about communication. And not only that, like I said, 5G is a directed energy system. It's a directed energy weapon. It uses targeted waves. So even when you're using it for communication, the tower is giving you a directed beam, and then another one to you, and another one to you, and another one to you. So it's directed. It's not an ambient frequency like 4G, like we've just got this Wi-Fi everywhere. It's not like that. It's all directed. So they can disable people. They can, and when you look at 5G, look at mind control. Look at the voice of God. Look at some of the stuff they did in Iraq. It's, the patents. There's endless lists of DARPA patents. You can go to my website, thecrowhouse.com. that I showed you the face before, you'll find essential reading. You'll find a list of 100 DARPA patents, which are all 5G, all 5G stuff. And they did the tests. They're saying they're not going to wait for the standards, but they did the tests in 1954 with 5G. They already know it's dangerous. It's bad for you. It's bad for your health. It messes with your cell structure, all sorts of stuff. But the thing is, we're creating this system which is essentially a weapons system, which has been rolled out across our societies under the guise of a communication system, and we're just allowing them to do it. We've got this information, but we're not doing anything about it. I tell people this is what you can do. You're under assault. Just go and say, hey, I'm going to file charges. And they go, oh, great, someone will do that. And they don't do it. They don't go and do it themselves. So we become we become complicit, willing participants in our own slavery. And like I said, when you look at all this stuff that I've showed you about history and the recycling of people, even with the giants, I speculate, even stories of Atlantis and stuff like that. How many cultures have there been? How many civilizations have there been? And some of the giants that I showed you, they're the small ones. There's ones you can find prior to that were bigger ones. So what happens? Do we get smaller and smaller in size all the time? Or is that what's going on? What's going on? Is there some sort of weird genetic experiment going on? I don't know. It's very difficult to get to the bottom of this. But just the whole concept that our history is completely fabricated is a hard one for people to swallow. Everyone's got this whole, we came from the Roman Empire and the British colonies, went and did all this stuff. The Dark Ages and all this stuff, there's actually a Russian guy called Anatoly Fomenko. I recommend you look at his books as well. And he has put forth the notion that the Dark Ages was an invention, 1,000 years that they just put in there because they needed to push all of this stuff back in history to give us the concept that it's been this feudal culture that built up to what it is. But nowhere in any of it will you find any mention of Tartaria. And I'll tell you, if you go start looking at maps from the 1500s back, anywhere from around about maybe the mid-1600s back, you're going to find Tartaria on all of these maps. And like I said, you'll even find reference of it in 1942. They were talking about erasing Tartar history. The Mongols, China, India, it was all one culture. And it all seemed to be a culture that was quite harmonious, with free energy and normal trade, quite tolerant culture, And so, history is completely wrong, folks. It's completely wrong. So the question is, how many times does this happen? And is it due to happen again? And is that what all this is about? Is that why these legends of these scrying mirrors and all these things exist, Because it's really interesting stuff. That you would find these sigils that look like electrical circuits, and you see everybody on these mirrors now. And mankind is lost to technology. And I love technology. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with communicating with people. But we've lost sight of who we are. And we're getting all this information, but we're not doing anything about it. There's a certain karmic responsibility in that, even knowing about this stuff. Why do they make the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing so public? It's just incredible how public they made it. And even the way they suicided him in jail. I mean, does anyone believe that he actually committed suicide in jail? It's not possible to commit suicide in one of those jails, even if you're not on suicide watch. You know, paper-thin blankets, paper-thin sheets, hang yourself from a bed that's this high. How are you going to do this, you know? It doesn't work, you know? So they even did that so blatantly, and we know what's going on. And that's why we never get anywhere either, is because this pedophilia is rampant. It's through the whole system. You know, that's how they get away with it all. You know, you find people in key positions are compromised through brownstone operations and pedophilia operations, you know, because that's another thing they've done with our society. They've disconnected us all from our natural sexuality. You know, nobody's free to express themselves. Everyone thinks it's dirty, and I want to think dirty thoughts and all this sort of shit. So they won't actually do what they want to do. So they sneak out and have sordid affairs with people and stuff, and they bottle up all this stuff. You know, so it's really easy to just get people and hey, let's go and do this and get them on camera and bang, you got them. And that's how they do it, and that's why we never get anywhere. So, you know, it's got to come down to us. You know, because, you know, we could change it. Anyone ever see the film The Green Beautiful? Anyone ever seen it? It's a French film. It was banned across Europe. You'll find a link to that on my website as well, if you look in the recommended viewing section. The Green Beautiful, it's a wonderful story about these people who threw all their technology away, actually. But it was banned, it came out in the 80s or 90s. It's quite an old film. And they banned it across Europe because it shows you the way out. People just had enough and said, no, we're not going to do this anymore, and threw everything away. And it shows you how stupid we all are. You know, there was a woman there wearing makeup and saying, why do you wear makeup? You know, to make yourself, you know, look pretty, you know. And then who's these people in the photograph? Are the people that you love? Well, how come you love them and they're not wearing makeup? Yeah, because you wear makeup so people will love me. But these aren't wearing makeup, why do you love them? Just the stupid things we do. The stupid superficial things we do. How much time have I got?
Oh, you're good for 5 to 10 more.
5 to 10 more. Any questions on any of this stuff, folks? There's probably a lot of questions.
I've got a question, mate. You keep referring to they, and we hear this elusive they many, many times. What's the hierarchy? Like the police can't be smart enough to run the planet.
What's
the they? Who's the they?
Who's the they? That's the thing.
Running the show?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, whoever's in the underground bases, I would suggest that some of the Tartarian culture is still around as well. The swastika as well was big in Tartaria, by the way, folks. The swastika was found on every single continent on Earth. American Indians used the swastika. Everybody used the swastika. The swastika actually represents balance and harmony, equality, all that sort of stuff. We just got told it meant something else. So now we hate this thing. We hate the symbol that represents balance, harmony, and equality. Something psychological going on in there, I think, as well. But who they are is an interesting thing. You know, I mean, it seems to be non-human. I mean, if you start looking at the ETs and the UFO shit, and I've seen UFOs myself, so I know they're real. Who's driving them is another question. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're hiding land as well. I wouldn't be surprised if there's people here that we don't know about, that land that I showed you at the North Pole earlier. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if any of that's going on. You know? Where's the other? There we go. I was gonna have that playing, talking about how we should be who we are. This is something that I would be advising anybody. I think that's something that you should teach your kids. But you know who they are. I think all the conspiracies have been put there, and you tell me who you want to believe it is. And give me 2 days to prepare a presentation, and I'll convince you that you're right, because all of the information is put there for me to be able to do that. Because the easiest way to hide a real conspiracy is to create a conspiracy culture around it, so that everything becomes a conspiracy. Nobody even believes any of these shootings are real anymore. So nobody cares about it. Oh, it's just a hoax. All hoaxes. All these major shootings are all hoaxes. You know. All they had to do was do a couple of hoaxes, like Sandy Hook, I think, was a complete hoax. Boston bombing was a complete hoax. That's all they had to do was do them. Now all the shootings are hoaxes, and if you say they're not, you're the enemy. You know, so, but I think it's this whole experience, like I said, it's almost like we come here to grow our soul. And I think who is ever in the underground bases knows exactly what's going on. I think we go through these cycles, but I think, you know, people are saying there's going to be a comet, or there's going to be a plasma event, or there's going to be a sunspot thing. I think we do it to ourselves. I think we do it to ourselves when we start giving ourselves over to the scrying mirrors, and we start trading knowledge for wisdom. You know, we start trading our moral compass for legislation. You know, we know the world's corrupt. We know the Prime Minister's a lying piece of shit, but we still vote for him. What the fuck for? And why does anyone even go to the polling booth? Who are you voting for, Tweedledee or Tweedledum? You know, why do they even go? You know, I've never voted. I've never registered on the electoral roll. They come to my house sometimes and they say, we believe there's someone here who's not registered on the electoral roll. And I go, yeah, that's me. And they get all excited and pull out their notepad and go, what's your reason? I just go, I refuse to support organised crime. And they go, are you a conscientious objector? You know, and I say, I call it sane. You can call it whatever you want. Anything else I can do for you? Have a nice day. And they go away. You know, so they never fine me for not voting because I never made the agreement to vote. You know, I just don't do any of that stuff. I just don't participate in it. Now, I used to be on a pension as well. I was on an invalid pension for a while. I gave it all back. I just said, I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you. I don't want your blood money. I don't want any. I don't own a credit card. I don't use a cell phone. I've got a cell phone, but I use it when I go overseas so I can use maps when I'm in Holland and places because you really need it. But that's about it. I don't use it here. So, you know, I just don't participate in the system. But I think, whether it's off-world or whatever, but I think we're caught in this cycle where we're given the opportunity to not participate. We're given the opportunity to grow our soul, but we continue to stay cowed because of the fear of terrorism, the fear of what have we done to us. If, oh gee, I might get hurt. Well, you came here to fucking die. That's what you came here to do, folks. It's inevitable. You know, that's the one thing that you can be guaranteed is going to happen in your life. You're going to leave here one time. It's how you do that. And what you do with this information along the way. I won't back down to this shit. I won't back down to any of it, you know. You know, what if that's what it's about? Because no matter what we do, vote in, vote out, have wars, have peace, look at it, it's shit. And it continues to be shit, and it will continue to be shit until we change what's in here. And if we change what's in here, if everybody had this epiphany and just went, oh my God, I've realised who and what I am, we change the world in 3 seconds. 3 seconds, we could just, bang. Suddenly everyone goes, oh shit, I actually care about you, you know? In Lakesh, we are each other. I am another yourself. There's only actually one of us here. Experiencing life from 6 billion different perspectives to seeing if we can get along with ourselves. And we can't even learn how to do that. We want all these apps to do it for us. I mean, do you see the choice here? We could literally change our perspective and we could change the entire world in one day if everyone stepped into their moral compass. And the choice is given to us every single day to do that, and we don't do it. You know, no one wants to be the first. Someone else has got to do it for me. So, oh, I'm too scared to step outside the box. What, you're scared you're going to die? That's what you came here to do. Grow up. You know? So, and I'm not saying go out and sacrifice yourself or anything, folks, but you're only here for a breath. No stake in the outcome, folks. What do you care what the human race really does? It's about what you do and what your moral standing is and what your moral compass and what your sole purpose is here. You're not going to get that from starting some movement. Yeah, let's go get the government. Fuck the government, it's a fiction. People learn all this stuff, maritime admiralty law, all this stuff. Well, so they're going to go fight the judge, they're going to go fight the system. The system is a fiction. If you're going to fight it, they're right, you're delusional. Because that's what they say, oh, what are you saying? You're delusional, yeah? Well, if you're going to fight a cloud, you don't have to fight it. You have to disconnect from it. It's an illusion. It's just an idea. The whole system is just an idea that somebody had. And we taught our kids that this is the way the world's run. And the kids went, oh, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. When I was 4 years old, we were out in the forest. And I said to my mum, this is incredible. What are we doing living down there in town? Let's come and live here. She said, we can't live here. I said, why not? There's nobody else here. I was 4, you know. And she said, well, you've got to own the land. And I went, own the land? what do you mean own the land, Mum? She said, well, you've got to own the land, son. I'm like, who owns the land? She said, the government owns it. I went, how did they get it? And she said, you'll understand when you get older. And I'm like, own the land? I said, do we have to own the house down there? And she said, yeah, we own the house. I said, well, did you have to buy it? And she said, yeah. I'm going, wow, you know. And I'm walking around the yard with my teddy bear that night, because that afternoon, teddy bear was my best friend. I didn't really get on with anybody else, but they're all crazy. But I was walking around with my teddy bear and I'm going, Teddy, it's all fucked up. I've been born onto the wrong world. These people think they can own the land. Can you tell God that he needs to take me off this world and put me back onto the other world where people don't think they can own land? That's when I was 4. I had a terrible childhood from that point. I was just going around, I've been born into an insane asylum. You know, so when I was about 7, I decided I really wanted to be old enough to smoke pot, get away from here. And when I decided, as soon as I heard the Beatles when I was 8, I thought, okay, I'm going to be a musician. That's the way. And then I became a musician when I was in my second, third year of high school. I'd been kicked out of 4 high schools, so arguing with my teachers because they were teaching me stuff that didn't have any relevance to life. And I became a musician. I lived on the outside of society for 30 years, you know. And then I decided it's kind of necessary to get involved in what's going on. I was kind of living in a bubble. I had all this information, but I wasn't doing anything about it. And I realised that this is all a soul thing, you know. You can only numb it for so long, you know. And the simplicity of the way out, it's so simple that people simply can't see the forest for the trees. They want someone to come along and lead them. They're not prepared to lead themselves, you know. Even if you want to get religious about it, again, if you look at the Christ figure, you know, he's not waiting, he's not going to come back and save you. He was an anarchist, he was an activist. He said, fuck the system, you know. And he taught people self-empowerment. The way is through me, just to disconnect from it. Throw yourself to the wind, because when you do, you can ride it. You know, and he got away with saying that for years and years and years. 30 years he was saying this to people. And then he went into the temple and he overturned the tables of the money changers and started messing with the banking system. And he was dead within a week. Don't fuck with the bankers. Bit of a lesson there, huh? You know. But he was an activist. If he wasn't, you wouldn't have heard about him. And if everybody did that, had that attitude, but oh shit, I've just realised we don't have to do any of this. It's just an idea somebody had, and actually it's a really fucked up idea. We could change the world in a day. It's that simple, folks. There's no one coming to save you. There's no one you can vote in. There's no one you can vote out. It's whether you choose to comply with this system, whether you choose to use this tech and go along with all this stuff, whether you choose to be a shining light, you know, and shine your light, do the best you can, help everybody you can, be an absolute pleasure to be around, be a joy to be around, and give all you can to people who need to be given to, you know. Don't deplete yourself. Love yourself. You know, I always say there's one law of creation, which is unconditional love and service to creation. You know, and what is you know, you got to do what's right. That's what's right. You know, follow your path of Dharma. Do the right thing in the right way, the right time for the right reason, which is unconditional love and service to creation. But don't deplete yourself in service of others. Love yourself as much as you love others. Just don't deplete them in service of you. Yeah, but put yourself on the same keel. We don't do that. Very often we'll go there, we'll deplete ourselves in service of others. It's just not love for creation. Love yourself. If you're not capable of loving yourself, you'll never get anywhere. And as soon as you do love yourself, you change the world in a day. You know? It all breaks down. This is why I finish every radio show with In Lakesh, I am another yourself, this mind greeting. The beauty of that and the power of that. You know, we are each other. What's life like from that perspective? You know? We're all here together. It's all the same thing. It's all the one conscious. You know, you just got a whole bunch of lonely people in the world with this inner longing to be part of something, but they don't realise that they're already part of. You know, we've had all this stuff taken from us, and we don't even know what we're looking for because we don't even know what's been taken. You know, this connection that we should have had if our pineal was open and all this sort of stuff, which is, I think, why we take to all this tech so readily, because it reminds us of the inner technology that we've lost. We don't know we've lost it. We don't know what's been taken from us. It's like, you know, if you're a Lamborghini driver and I want to sell you my Honda, you're not going to buy it. But if I come and steal your Lamborghini, you're going to buy my Honda. You know, they've stolen our Lamborghini. We don't know they've taken it. Now they're trying to sell us this cheap, clunky, virtual cage that they're putting over the organic life, this AI virtual machine reality, and we're willingly giving ourselves to it, you know. We could change it. We could change it. So I guess that's about all I have to say, I think. I think we're about out of time. I hope you got something from that.